wait time is approximately forever.
That's nice.
We cannot afford to be so politically correct anymore. Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
Please continue to hold for the next available representative.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
We appreciate you waiting and waiting. What is it you're waiting for? Do you even know anymore?
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Disconnected.
Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new live stream. Make sure you guys like the stream down below. We are just ready to get started. We have a decent amount to get to tonight and we're going to get to all of it. So welcome in everybody. Donald Trump had a great week. I think it's important we talk about it. We're going to be getting to super chats later on. We're going to be getting to some calls later on. If you guys are in the Discord, which to join, you have to join the website. It is just $5 a month, 16 cents a day. For call priority, you'd have to join the pro tier. But nonetheless, we are going to get to callers later. It's not going to be at the beginning of the stream. We'll get to some super chats before we do that as well. But I wanted to talk about this past week because I'd say that the confidence level that Donald Trump is going to win is going up with every single day that goes by. At least it has been recently. And we can see that. We see Donald Trump and we see Joe Biden. We see each candidate, what they're doing, where their priorities really lie, what's going on. And Donald Trump is going out there. He goes to the Lion's Den yesterday, and he goes and he rallies in deep blue areas. And like I said, it's mainly not about flipping the state of New York. So many people don't get it. So many people are dumb. They don't understand what's the underlying factors of the strategy. No, Donald Trump is not going to New Jersey because he's going to try to win New Jersey. He went to New Jersey because he went to the Philadelphia media market, in a place where a lot of Pennsylvanians typically spend their weekends, down by Atlantic City. And he got a very, very, very large crowd, a record crowd. It was all over the media in Philadelphia. Goes to the Bronx, gets a big crowd for a deep blue area, very few protests outside. Of course, the media is going to try to downplay the crowd size, of course. They're going to try to downplay it. They're going to try to pretend like there was a large amount of protesters there, but it's not true. Do you remember 2016? Do you remember Chicago? Trump tried to hold a rally there in Chicago, and probably one of the nicer areas in Chicago. It still got shut down by protesters, rioters, essentially. You had Antifa. You had BLM before BLM really was in full gear. But you had a lot of people come together and shut it down, protest. But now you don't see that anymore. You don't see it. Trump holds a rally. He's met with resounding praise. Doesn't mean he's going to win the Bronx. He probably gets 20%, but that's a huge improvement. If he's actually doing that well, he's gaining with Hispanics. He's gaining in the cities. He's going to do better in Philadelphia, probably Pittsburgh, maybe Detroit's a little bit of a stretch, but in the South, the Sun Belt, you name it, Arizona, plenty of areas. But Donald Trump was able to go, pull a big crowd there. And what is more important, in my opinion, than the crowd he pulled in a deep blue area was also the content of the speech. Because Donald Trump went out there and he delivered a speech with good energy, talked about issues people care about, delivered it well, played, the crowd very well. And he also had all these other people that were up there with him that he was able to bring on stage and make their case for him. And it just it's good optics in general. That's all campaigns are about. They are about photo ops. In many ways, it is a photo op, but who cares? They're just saying that because they know it's working. They know it's effective. That's why they try to call it a photo op. But you need photo ops. Everything Biden does is a photo op. Literally everything. So you want to sit here and moral, what about, these photo ops? Have at it. I don't care. It was a great speech, and his energy levels are where they need to be. He's with it. He's got wit. He's mellow, but he's got charm. The same original charm, but less boisterous than he had back in 2016. Kind of showcases where things are right now. And Donald Trump, if he's able to keep this up, because he's on message, which is the most important thing, he's talking about issues that matter. If he stays on message between now and Election Day, there's no way he loses. There's no way. Because he's able to avoid, he's on trial right now, but he's able to avoid, PR scandals. They have to grasp for straws to create them. And when they do that, it makes them look crazy. The whole bloodbath thing. They tried to run with that despite the fact that Trump was talking about the auto industry and talking about an economic bloodbath. Well, I think this November, at the rate things are going, it's going to be an electoral bloodbath for Biden. And they just, again, when they act like that, they lose. It blows up in their face. And they have to grasp at straws to try and find things wrong with things Trump does. It's like every time that he gave the State of the Union as president, that's what they would do. Well, now that's like every speech. Every speech is good. They have to, pick it apart and try to find things wrong. It's like when he went to the Libertarian convention. He got booed. Oh, wow. He got booed in front of another party's convention that's not his party because he, mentioned getting their nomination. Okay. When's Biden ever going to go speak in front of the Green Party? When's Biden going to go to the Libertarian convention? Will he face the people? Has Biden faced a hostile crowd at all? No, of course not. And how does Donald Trump handle it? Well, he throws jabs back at the audience, of course. That's fair. I mean, these people were belligerent. They're booing things that he was saying that were objectively good and objectively libertarian, and not in like a lolbertarian fashion, in an objectively libertarian, manner. You're talking about certain things that he did that these people would agree with, talking about the fact that there were no foreign wars. Still, you have people that were just booing everything he was saying. They're obnoxious. The Libertarian Party is a joke. They're filled with children. And, these are the same people that booed their own nominee back in 2016 because of the fact that Gary Johnson said that driver's licenses are okay with him. Some people were mad at him. They were booing. These are not serious people, so I think that if there is a legitimate criticism of Donald Trump, it was trying to give these people legitimacy. But still, there is about 3% of the population that identifies with this party. Doesn't mean they always vote for the party, but you have a lot of these libertarian people who, are able to at least consider voting for Donald Trump. And if Trump's going to their convention, they're like, okay, well, why is Trump here? But it's a good thing that he was there because he didn't cede all the ground to RFK Jr., who also, by the way, got booed. They don't talk about that. They don't talk about RFK Jr. getting booed. But Donald Trump, he gets booed, it's over. But it's not. It's not. He did get booed at times. There were also times the crowd cheered for him. Face facts. He touched base on everything. He gave a very, very good speech, good messaging, talk to these people about things they supposedly care about. You know, he touched base on the fact he didn't start any new wars. He talked about his crypto policy that they would really resonate with. He talked about pardoning one of their heroes who was like a crypto guy that, you know, I guess he got tried for computer hacking. They gave him a very, very long sentence. Whatever. He's somebody that's revered by a lot of these people. It's a net positive to say on day one, I'll commute a sentence. And it basically kind of puts these people in a predicament where it's like, yeah, well, if I vote for Trump, then I at least get something out of it. And it is true. If libertarians are actually, 100% confident in their convictions and they also want to win, who are you going to pick? Trump, who has a less interventionist foreign policy, who is just all around, I would say, the better individual on the economy for these people. And even in regards to a lot of things like religious liberty, he's not trampling on others. And you look at what the Biden administration is doing to political dissidents. I feel like Trump is there to make a case. And he says, yeah, he said, if I wasn't a libertarian then, look at what the government's doing to me. They're indicting me. I sure as hell am a libertarian now. Anyone who watched the full speech and is a normal, sane person that leans libertarian is going to be more likely to vote for Donald Trump, despite the booing. The booing just exposed the Libertarian Party for the clown show that it truly is. And that's exactly what it is. It's a total clown show. And if people didn't know it already, and they're on the right, they know it now. These people are not serious. They don't want to win. They just want to throw their votes away to the third party and act like Trump and Biden are equals. And they're not. They're not equals. And we know that. Now their new candidate's very far left on a lot of things. So I'm hoping that a lot of the libertarians will weigh their considerations carefully and choose Donald Trump if they tend to be right-leaning at all on anything, because that's what it comes down to. And thankfully, the guy that lost was from Pennsylvania. Now, it is true the guy that won is from Georgia, which is still a competitive state. But still, I mean, the bottom line is the fact that the guy that came in second place probably could have done Trump more damage, because I think Trump's going to win Georgia by more than 1% or whatever the libertarian candidate will get there. But in terms of Pennsylvania, that margin could be huge. And if you have somebody that's like from Pittsburgh in the area siphoning votes potentially away from Trump, who's more like seen as more right-wing, that could be a problem. But we don't see that here right now. But Trump is the type of person that a lot of people said for a very long time was not the adult in the room. Yet he's in a room full of children, and he was the one that was calm. You know, they'll try to spin it. Oh, he was rattled. He lashed out at the crowd because he said something that was true. We're going to play this clip. This is the clip they say is like really bad optics for Trump. I think it's more bad optics for the Libertarian Party, if you want to be completely honest.
That's nice. That's nice. Only if you want to win. Only if you want to win. Maybe you don't want to win. Maybe you don't want to win. Thank you, D-Roy. Thank you. No, only do that if you want to win. If you want to lose, don't do that. Keep getting your 3% every 4 years. The reasons for...
It's true. It's exactly true. Trump basically before, if you need any background information, was saying that, yeah, you know, if you want to win, nominate me, as this author who's like a libertarian Republican said. And he's right. If they actually want to get any form of legitimacy, you would nominate somebody that the party that more aligns with you is nominating. And it would make sense. Yes, it's a coalition. You know, Trump's going out there, he's pledging to put a libertarian in the cabinet. And it depends where they are, obviously. It depends what type of libertarian it is, in my opinion. Hopefully it's not some low libertarian. Hopefully it's somebody that's a libertarian that at least like believes in borders, a libertarian that, you know, maybe economically they're like anti-Fed or something like that. If he does that, that'd be really good. And a lot of everything he said for the most part in this speech that he gave, I agreed with. You know, I'm not a libertarian, although there are many principles that libertarians have that are indeed good, like foreign policy. You know, some, but not all economic things I would agree with. I mean, I'm not exactly for unfettered free trade. I feel like that's extremely unfair and a careless policy. There are libertarians that do support tariffs, but they are far and few between. And there's plenty of other things that they're, I'd say, relatively decent on. I would say. Not perfect. I'm not a libertarian, but I mean, I understand some of them are better than a lot of these other Republicans or these neocons. You know, people like the Ron Paul type of libertarian. There's a clear difference between somebody like that and like a Gary Johnson or some of these Lolbertarians, these people that believe that we should have open borders and legalize all drugs and do X, Y, and Z. Those type of people are clowns in many cases, and the people that think that Trump and Biden are equal. Even from a libertarian perspective, it's not even the lesser of two evils. You have Donald Trump, who at times may be imperfect in their view. You know, the debt, that's definitely also not entirely his fault. The president's not somebody that's a dictator. Apparently, they don't really like that either. You have to go through Congress. You have checks and balances. It's not exactly the president's fault for, you know, why that would be in terms of the debt. But Biden is somebody that is, you know, pro foreign wars. Biden is somebody who is cracking down on political dissidents with the power of the government, and all this like crypto stuff they're talking about Trump, at least on policy, is coming around to a lot of their positions. And all they can say is, well, why didn't you do this in the past 4 years? Well, they fail to understand that presidents' terms usually vary between their first to second term. A lot of them don't even have 4 years in the middle to kind of deliberate, you know, reflect on what they've done right, reflect on what they've done wrong. And you look at that and it's like, yeah, just ignorant of history. These people are children. They don't understand pragmatism. Trump agrees with them far more than Biden does. You know, Trump agrees with them on all the economic issues, good chunk of the social issues. You know, Biden disagrees with them on a lot of those. Even if Trump is not fully in lockstep, Biden's not in lockstep either, even on some of those same issues for different reasons that go against their own so-called principles that they love to cling to dearly. So a lot of the people booing are clowns, but Trump is right. You want to win, you know, get behind me. Don't run a candidate. Tell your people to vote for me instead. It would make sense, and it absolutely would make sense. And it would also give them a lot more legitimacy. But in turn, they're going to run some candidate, some no-name, probably doesn't even affect the election because the Libertarian Party is not really going to have much ground to stand on this election cycle because you have RFK Jr., he's like the big independent candidate, and he's a liberal, he's a leftist. And then you have Jill Stein, who is a more, you know, open leftist, or at least tries to appeal to leftists. You have Cornel West, who is the same thing. Libertarian, their candidate's probably going to be, of all the major candidates, usually it's going to go from like number 3 all the way down to number 4, 5, 6, or 7. That's where they're at right now. So it's like, yeah, libertarians are not really doing that well this cycle. There's no way they could really gain prominence no matter who they put up. Why not just join the winning ticket? And this speech, obviously, do I think Trump changed a lot of minds in the room? Probably not. At least not the libertarians who were opposed to him. But at the end of the day, this speech kind of is crucial because in the long run, he's outlined an agenda that appeals to these people. And you have maybe some more reasonable, less lolcow tier libertarians at home that'll listen to what Donald Trump is saying and agree with it. And as for the booing, it's like, yeah, CNN might run a segment on the boos. The boos are going to be forgotten about. You know, maybe it's not a good look to get booed, but if you watch Trump while he was getting booed, he was maintaining his composure. He didn't get booed off stage. These people have to lie. They have to lie their asses off because they're losing. It's not like Trump is actually messing up. They have to make it appear like he's messing up when he's not messing up, and then they have to run with it because they can't win on their merits. This time around, they can't do it. That's what they have to do. It's frustrating to them. But to Trump, it's like, yeah, you gave a speech. Some people booed at parts, but other people cheered. I mean, you can watch this.
And if you vote for me on day one, I will commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht to a sentence of time served.
Yeah, he's getting cheered. I mean, not everybody cheering probably is even going to support voting for him. But at the end of the day, it's true. You're in a swing state. You're a libertarian. You just got to understand. And that's why Trump was good to say this. You know, you're not going to be able to win. But I'm better than Biden. I'm listening to you. I'll reach out to you. So those libertarians in swing states who don't vote for the Libertarian Party, Trump's making an outreach to them. You know, he might win some of them from this. I think it's a net positive. I do. But the context of the speech and the energy and just the fact that he's staying on message, he's got good delivery, that's the main takeaway I had from watching it. It wasn't so much the booze. And the fact that he's chasing every last vote, leaving no stone unturned, I think it's a very good thing. I really think it is a good thing. And it is going to help him. Libertarians are not a big portion of the electorate, but Donald Trump's campaign is not centered on pandering to libertarians. He didn't pander, in my opinion, much at all. He just talked about things that mattered, and everything he talked about was, good. I mean, maybe you could say the First Step Act, him mentioning that, there were cons to that bill, and there were. Trump needs to be tougher on crime than somebody who just signs off on, these bipartisan criminal justice, quote-unquote, reform bills. But that's not the point. Trump did it, and it's something that appeals to the crowd that he mentions. Probably one of the weakest things that he really talked about. But in terms of this whole, why didn't you do it in the last 4 years, does it really fully add up when, presidential terms tend to be different and people see what Biden's doing and they know that Donald Trump is better than Biden, but at least Trump is now running on something different. It's not like he's running for re-election saying these things and he could just do them. He's out of power. He's out of office. And he's reorienting his messaging on certain things that are objectively good, whether they're libertarian or whether they're not so libertarian. It doesn't matter. People are going to say, well, he wants to become a dictator or whatever. The bottom line is that Trump just wants to use the power of executives. And all the libertarians that I like are actually successful people, or at least the libertarians like people like Pinochet, Millet, etc. These are people that love to use the power of the government, and they were able to shrink the government the way that most libertarians want. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they were able to use power to do that. You're not going to be able to use the system as it is. That's like Donald Trump and even like a lot of libertarians say, rigged system. You're not going to be able to use the system the way that it is to get things done and to get your agenda passed or to have, move society, move the ball in the right direction. So that's the main takeaway. And I think that Donald Trump speaking to these people is indeed a very good thing. And I agreed with pretty much everything he said in the speech, even though I detest the Libertarian Party and know that a lot of libertarians, not necessarily all people who identify as libertarians, but a lot of like these low libertarians are very cringeworthy people. These are people that are like streaking on stage. These are people that are booing driver's licenses. They're not serious people. I really cannot stand people that go out there and are just not serious, especially people that should be, realizing reality and join the winning team, not some throwaway, oh, well, Trump and Biden are equally bad. It's just not true. It's not true. It's not true. But they say it because it gives them this false sense of like moral superiority over the rest of the population. They think it's quirky. I don't know why they exactly feel this way, but these are not serious people. They're not. And that's that. But what is serious is Donald Trump. And I touched base on this tweet earlier. And that's, he spoke in front of a hostile crowd. He handled himself well. This is a man who's been under fire for the past 8-9 years. He's on trial for crimes he did not commit, crimes that don't even exist, and still, he's not rattled. You have people booing him, which again was not the whole crowd, a lot of children that they strategically placed in the front row. These were people that were booing him sometimes, and he didn't get rattled. He handled it like a man. And I will say this, the number one takeaway I got from this whole thing was if that Trump shows up to the debate against Biden, and fake Tapper and the other woman, forgot who it's going to be. And if that Trump shows up then, he's going to win the debate, period. He will win the debate. So long as he prepares, so long as he brings the facts, he will win the first debate. He will deny Biden a serious grab of momentum. You even have people at CNN there saying if that Trump from the Bronx, which was the same Trump at the Libertarian Convention, if they show up to the debate, if that Trump shows up, he's going to win easily. No questions asked. There's a change of pace. Trump is surrounded with competent people, people that are serious about winning, people that actually want to, help him and are not willing to, make him compromise his agenda to think that that's going to help him. It didn't help him in 2020 at all. But now he's in a very good position for victory. He's united the entire Republican Party behind him essentially now, especially. He got the Haley endorsement. I don't really care what Nikki Haley thinks, but he denied Biden a serious victory in terms of just being able to say that. If Biden was able to say, well, 20-some% of your primary supporters, which again, obviously a lot of those people voted for Biden, that's not the point, because a primary voter doesn't necessarily indicate that they identify with the party. But still, if Biden was going to say, look, I peeled off your main challenger support, that's bragging rights he'd love to have. He tried to get that endorsement. It failed. He can't say, oh, well, I'm going to reach out to Haley voters as much now that Nikki Haley is lining up behind Donald Trump, and that Donald Trump is just saying, yeah, I have a feeling she'll be joining us. She'll be on our team. Doesn't mean he has to give her a position. I hope he doesn't give her a position, but still, it just showcases the olive branch mentality and just the ability to unite and win. That's what we have to do. We're going to have a lot of purity tests and battles. We'll deal with that after the election. Now is not the time to have infighting. Now is not the time to sit here and bicker. We're 2 months from the RNC and we're a united party. Let's go. Let's move forward and let's get this thing won. It doesn't mean that Trump needs to surround. We need to have him surround himself with people that'll be subversive in his presidency. But that time, we can talk about his presidency when the time comes. We could talk about his presidency come November, but until he wins the election, there's really nothing to talk about, because if you can't win, then there's not going to be a presidency. So he has to play his cards right, and he's been playing his cards right in every possible level. That's why he's leading in the swing states by the margins he's leading by. Even if 2022 polling errors, if you applied them this cycle, Donald Trump would win the election. I mean, think about that. Assuming he got Nebraska second, which he's leading in, and where there wasn't really a polling error in the midterms. And we know there's not going to be a midterm level polling error. It's very unlikely polling errors carry over from midterm years to presidential years. But the fact that Donald Trump is leading in every single swing state, and you've got how many months to go? 5 months to go? I mean, how many polls has Biden led in the past year in Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina? You can't find any. I think Arizona, he hasn't led a poll in Arizona since April of 2023, at least a poll that was RCP accredited. And you could apply this to a lot of different states. Georgia, it's been a similarly long time. You look at North Carolina, it's been over a year. I think it's been since March of 2023. I mean, even Wisconsin, besides the Quinnipiac poll, Biden's only led one poll in Wisconsin. One poll the entire time. So, it's really not, you're not going to be able to make a case that the polls are that much wrong, or they're that much wrong compared to 2022, at least because 2022, there were a good chunk of polls in the mix that showed, some Democrats leading. It was like, which polls are going to be accurate? And national polling was, and some states' polls weren't, and the late response bias theory might hold up to a certain degree. But still, even, throwing that in the garbage, even looking at other metrics based off of polling, Donald Trump is in a very good position, which brings the question, and we're going to get to the people in the Discord, the callers eventually, because we have a question that needs to be answered. What is your biggest point of confidence? A little bit over 5 months out. What's your biggest point of concern? And we'll go from there. But we are going to get to super chats first. So we will get we'll get those taken care of momentarily. But let's see how many we have in chat. We got over 1,000 people. Guys, make sure you like the stream down below, and we'll get to the super chat. So, Johnny Heartdog for 20 says Trumpism and MAGA is the future of the GOP. Now, in order for them to survive, they're going to have to start thinking about it. Do you think the establishment will start thinking about it, or are they too stubborn to change? Well, I think that they've thought about it. Now, the establishment right is still at large. There's a lot of people that are in the sphere that still have the old guard mentality. But if you want to say that it's the same as it was 10 years ago, I just can't help you. And I'm not saying you are. But you have a lot of people that pretend like the rhinos are more powerful than ever. And it's like, no, they're not. We went from having to pick between McCain and Romney to, now 2024, we're going to be picking between which person's better to carry on Trump's legacy. So think about it like that. Like, the party's changed a lot. I think the Tea Party kind of started the change, and some of that does tie into some of these more authentically conservative tier libertarians who kind of became the MAGA populists in Congress or whatever. I mean, it's been brewing for a long time. It's been brewing for a while, but Donald Trump was that vehicle. How is it going to be, in play after Trump? Well, there's going to be this battle of who's going to really be able to carry the torch, and you will have bad actors that will try to co-opt it as well. So, everything has to be taken into consideration. Everything. Also, politics is politics. I get that. But I don't think Nikki should have a place in the Trump administration. You could see the evilness in her face. Yeah, I don't think she should have a place in the Trump administration, but the main problem with her initial position was also where she was in the administration, because Trump said this back in January when he was opposing her, that he put her in the cabinet so he would be able to get his guy in there as governor, and he's a very good governor, Henry McMaster. But the problem is the fact that, she was in the worst position possible. She was, in a position where she could be a neocon and cause damage in terms of foreign policy as UN ambassador. That was the main problem with Nikki Haley. It's not even that she was in the cabinet, but where did she go? If Donald Trump wants to take Lindsey Graham out of the Senate and put him in Secretary of Transportation, where he can, just manage how many new freeways we build or what type of railways do we have. I don't care if he does that. Does anybody actually care if Lindsey Graham is Secretary of Transportation? I think it's a much more irrelevant position than Senator. I don't even know if he'd take it. But if Trump offered him that position in exchange for having McMaster appoint a successor to Graham, that would be a big, big upgrade in that department. So, yeah, I'm not entirely sure that Haley will be joining the administration, but Lindsey Graham, if he puts him as Secretary of Transportation, maybe he would want the Secretary of Transportation. I think he would look at the first syllable of transportation and he would be like, wow, that really resonates with me. But as for Nikki Haley, I'm not entirely sure he's going to want to put her in the cabinet. So, also, another one from Johnny Hartdog for 10 saying the Libertarian Party has some great points, but they take small government way too far. Big difference between self-governing and no governing. There are some conservative libertarians I'd vote for. I agree. There's plenty of these actual, I say the paleo-libertarian types, people more like the Ron Paul crew. And I'm not saying I agree with them on everything, but in terms of their foreign policy, they're less likely to be bought. In terms of the economic principles they have as well, I think a lot of them might be, at odds with some of what I believe, but at the end of the day, I feel like that their intentions are better, and having them in the conversation is better than a lot of these neoconservatives who will take some of the worst aspects of their economic standpoints without any of the good ones and combine that with a very hawkish foreign policy. That would be a big problem. That'd be a problem. But in terms of small government, yeah, it's not a religion. We don't view, and this is the other thing. I don't understand the whole small government. The main talking point was actually not even small government. That was a bit of straw man. It was limited government. And ideally, you would have limited government, because it is true that a government that gets too big and too bloated is not exactly going to work in the best interests of the people. But the problem is you can't have libertarianism, because in order for libertarianism to work, you need a society that is orderly, and you cannot have liberty if you cannot have order. And that's the main problem with libertarians. So that's really what it comes down to. But either way, Trump making the outreach to these people is not a bad thing. Him getting booed, you could say maybe the optics of it, oh, we got booed, but he spoke at another party's convention. When is Biden going to do that? Biden would have been booed tenfold if he spoke there. RFK Jr. was booed. A lot of people, they boo their own nominees. Let's be real here. Let's be real. The Commander for $20 says the LP took 7 rounds and Chase was up against the none of the above for the final vote. He still lost almost 40% at the convention. Biden lost 20% in the primaries. Trump lost 15%. I think it's safe to say that the Libertarian Party is screwed. Well, they already were screwed. There was no way out for them. Real Texan Politics is breaking. Chase Oliver secures Libertarian. Yeah, we covered that as well. Fugma. Okay, F. Gatim says, why aren't they polling New Mexico? Might be a sleeper flip. I agree. I mean, if you see what's going on in Arizona, Georgia, Texas, even Colorado polls have tightened. I mean, it's not like Trump's going to win, but the fact that you're seeing a shift of what, like 5 to 7 points there, if you see that in New Mexico, maybe it would come into play. I think that it should be a state that people poll. Maybe not poll as much as you poll other states like Michigan or Wisconsin, but these are states where you don't have any polls that are like non-agenda based polls that go all the way back into like 2022. So that's kind of the takeaway. Let's see. Kyle Beckman for 10 says, it frustrates me that libertarians will let the perfect be the enemy of the good. They can continue waiting for politician Jesus, but they'll be waiting for the rest of their life. Exactly. They will never win an election. They don't understand the concept. The two-party system, they say, is the problem. But I don't understand. You know, parties can change. That's kind of the main takeaway. And in terms of this, you're not going to have coalitions, but you have somebody that's reaching out to you and your supporters specifically saying, I'll even put one of you in the cabinet. Their whole free Ross thing, the crypto, that's like all they talk about. Trump is basically outlining that in his agenda. And not only that, he has a chance to win and he's the front runner. Why not just get behind him and then try to, if you claim a stake in his victory, at least at that point you'll have more pull. But what can I say? Let's see. Manny says the Libertarians nominated a gay former Exactly. I just hope that Republicans, Georgia, he is from Georgia. The real question is, did he actually screw over Herschel Walker? I think he did, but I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Herschel Walker had scandals and people didn't like either candidate just voted for him. I don't think they really knew much about who the guy is or what the guy really stood for anyways. But Sam Madsen says, I saw a house with a Joe Jorgensen sign in 2020. I wonder if they're voting Libertarian again this time. Well, if they voted for her, they probably will. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. M says Trump should put a Libertarian as Secretary of Treasury. Economics is one of the few issues Libertarians are solid on. We need to fix the debt. Yeah, I think Secretary of Treasury would be a good position. I think actually he was talking or considering Vivek for the Treasury position, and that would probably be a good place for him given his more, I guess you would say, libertarian tendencies. I don't know. Dino Diva says, I used to be libertarian, and you've explained why that was a bad idea. Great insights. Exactly. These people don't understand viability, strategy. Donald Trump on foreign policy, that was the main problem between the two parties. Trump broke the Republican Party free of the neocon stranglehold of the pro-war politicians. And that in and of itself is kind of like the main reason why a lot of people were libertarian or did like somebody like a Ron Paul back in the day. And, he's not like an end the Fed type of guy. But in terms of realistic reforms in certain aspects that kind of appeal not just to them because they're a minority and they have to understand that, but to the Republican base as a whole, he gives them the best shot. Otherwise, you get more Biden, another term of Biden, because that's what these people would be voting for. So, forgot to update there we go, because we are answering Super Chats now. Let's see. GigaChad Gamer says, why on Twitter does the right seem anti-Israel, but in real life it's hard to find a conservative who doesn't like Israel? Because the internet's not real life. I mean, plain and simple. I mean, part of it's a generational thing, but also you just have a lot of loud individuals. I feel like a lot of people are just ambivalent. They don't feel strongly either way. And when you have people that are very loud, that's going to kind of dictate the social media discourse. That's pretty much it. I mean, it feels like if you're talking about the topic on the right, then you usually are extremely anti or you're extremely pro. Like there's no middle ground. There's no in between. If I say something, I get accused of being owned by Israel. If I say that I'm not, rooting for these people shouting death to America. And if I say, well, I don't really want to give foreign aid to these people, we have a border crisis. I think our border matters more than Israel. Then they call me all these other names, anti-Semite, anti-whatever. So it doesn't matter. I think that the position that I have is pretty reasonable. It's pretty fair. And I feel like that's the position that a lot of people have in the real world, not people that are terminally online. But, I'll listen to people. I like to, talk to people about certain things and understand why they believe the way they do. But yeah, you get called names from both sides. And it's like when you get called, it's like if you say something about Russia and Ukraine, you get called a Russian asset, Russian agents. Like, I don't even like Russia that much. I don't really like Putin that much. It's mainly just the Ukraine, the pro-Ukraine narrative that I push back against. But if I was to talk the other side, they'd probably get, some pro-Russian people saying some things about how I'm a stooge for Zelensky or whatever. And that's obviously not true if you listen to what I have to say about the topic. Clearly, that's not the case. Ulysses Grant says libertarians boo their own candidates. Booing is just their thing. It's true. Brett BR says, is Jesse Ventura a lolbertarian? I think so. I mean, he's just crazy. He said he went out there and said, I could beat Biden and Trump. It's like you were on the ballot in Alaska in 2020 and you got 7th place. Doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Base Cat says, even Shanks is braced for impact for Trump's return. Well, Shank, I don't think is that much of an idiot at this point. I think that he just is genuinely fed up with Biden, and that is able to kind of make him see things a little bit more clearly. Even if he's fed up for liberal or leftist reasons, it doesn't matter. I'll, accept the sentiment in the discourse because it helps us. SoCal Conservative says, how high would you say the chances of New Mexico flipping red? I'd say it's probably, still 15%. I don't think it's a big chance of happening. I don't think it's an important state regardless, but if Trump wins it, that would be huge. I think it would just be more of a testament to the fact that not only did Hispanic trends continue, they accelerated from 2020. Is that going to happen? I don't know. But also, how does the white vote in Albuquerque go? Because that's kind of the consequential thing that will dictate how the state moves as well. It's not just the Hispanic vote in New Mexico, even though New Mexico is majority Hispanic. I don't think the electorate is. It might be lagging a little bit behind. Patrick Von Hanslick says, hey, Rep, love your vids and streams. Do you have any clue on what libertarians Trump might be thinking to add to his administration? I don't know. Maybe Vivek will be the libertarian, because even though he's technically not a part of the Libertarian Party, he is in many ways like a libertarian type of individual in regards to the economy and a lot of things. But I don't know. I have no clue. F. Gatim says, New Mexico's in play due to increasing Hispanic Trump support. I would refer you to what I just said. I think it helps. Is it the full equation? It's not the full equation. Timbo Slice for $20 says, love today's video, Rep. Got my New Jersey primary preview ballot in the mail today. It says first day of early voting is May 29th, so we'll be at the polls then. That's true. And also May 28th, there's no primaries at the presidential level. We have the Texas runoffs that we will be covering on Tuesday. Sean C. Says, how do you feel about Elon Musk? I think he's great. I think he's done a very good job at Twitter, or X, I should say. And I don't think he's perfect. I don't think I agree with him on everything. I think he's getting better. I don't look at him as somebody who, if he says something I disagree with, then he's actually not on our side. No, he's on our side, I would say, so long as he doesn't endorse RFK Jr. or whatever. I think that would be a net negative at that point with his influence. But he's moving over to our side from 4 years ago. He's opened up Twitter, or X. You have free speech for the most part on a platform. And that is huge. And I think in terms of the Overton window, in terms of the way society is moving, it's been this bulwark against some of this, stuff, because Twitter is mainly where the woke thrived. It was Twitter. People would get angry. They get frustrated. They dox people they disagreed with. Now you have a check on that power. And it also, because it's doing well, despite the fact that he's done 50,000 different things that most people would scratch their heads at, is this a good business decision? Well, even Meta is kind of, they're obviously a problem in many ways, but they're looking at certain things. They opened up verification for a fee. Are they censoring as much as they were before? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe there's less of an incentive for them to. Even YouTube changing certain terms of service back to the way they were before 2020. there are question marks about that. What's the strategy behind it? But still, it's a net positive. That's what people need to understand. We'll take the net positives because the little victories add up to be big ones. And a lot of people seemingly don't get it. They want all or nothing. But the left didn't get all or nothing. They got everything because they have thrived on incrementalism. And the right, if the right really starts to embrace it, we're really going to see the clock turn back in a very, very good way very shortly. So let's see here. Donald H. says, I know he's 75 and that he's the best justice on the court, but what are your thoughts on Clarence Thomas for Attorney General if Trump wins? I don't think he'll be Attorney General, but I do think he should probably step down at some point during Trump's term, because if he doesn't, it's going to be a little bit of a problem, and you're going to need to replace him and Alito quickly during Trump's term, because you don't want them to pass away during a future Democrat president, because if that happens, we know what's going on. John Waffle says, as someone with a political science degree, I'm starting to see a change in unity within the party. I don't know what you mean by that. Are you talking about a positive change, a negative change? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you mean or how the degree relates to it, but what can I say? Central Kentucky Elevators for 10 says, I'm normally a fan of Ted Cruz, but I don't like his IVF bill. He spent his career defending states' rights, but this bill would federally mandate IVF instead of leaving it to state legislatures. Yeah, I think that I'd probably vote against that bill. I don't think that codifying it is necessary. I think he wants to take it off the table, but I think it is something that might not even hold up in a court for one. But also, think about if hypothetically, if it passed and then the court struck it down, the whole we'll codify Roe argument would also be thrown in the garbage. So that's also, I guess, I don't think it's 4D chess, but I'm saying that could be a positive if it comes out of it. But there's no guarantee that would happen. But still, yeah, I think that IVF, in terms of a hill for conservatives to die on, I say it's probably not. You can't even ban abortion in Wyoming. You want to ban IVF in other states. IVF is like a 90% approval rating. You're really going to have to change public opinions. It doesn't mean that I view it as something that's moral. In fact, I probably would say it's not. But in terms of banning it, I think that that's probably not something that needs to be done right now, at least. And in terms of actually, I guess you would say, trying to codify it and bend over backwards for the other side, that's not something that really needs to be happening either. So, yeah. J.R. Williams, his thoughts on Timcast pushing the Texas going blue voter roll conspiracy. I feel like I talk about this every stream, and I think it's bad. I think it's dumb. It's not real. It's not like this is a problem that's real. And there may be some concerns about illegals voting. I think a lot of that would be more of a problem in the states that just mail everybody a ballot, where people could just take one hypothetically and then send it back and possibly be able to get away with it if the person that they're taking the ballot from just doesn't vote or doesn't check. This is a problem. I know it happens more than they say it happens. It's not we don't have a secure election system the way they say. But in terms of this whole, Texas is going blue because there's a bunch of new registrations. Those registrations are not real registrations. The actual Secretary of State of Texas put forth the actual numbers, and we're not growing. We're not growing that fast. In Texas, I think, gained between the time the report came out and the start of the year, or vice versa, I should say, they gained like 70,000 new voters. No, Texas is not flipping. Texas is going to move right this year, and that's a good thing. And a lot of the non-citizen vote stuff, if to what extent it's real, has already been baked in for a very, very long time. And while that number will likely go up because of the border crisis, will it go up by enough in the right states, given the way things are going? I would say probably not, even though I think we should have a full-scale investigation regardless post-election. Even if Trump wins, I think it's important to still make sure that we can secure the system and keep pushing forth the election integrity measures where we need to, which they already did in Georgia, Arizona. There's some stuff in Pennsylvania and Michigan that's taken place as well. Even some Democrat legislation that's going to backfire, like in-person early voting in Michigan. That's how Republicans take advantage of the election system in other places, and it works for them. And now you have it in Michigan. Now you have it in Wisconsin. I mean, let's be real here. Also, you got other election integrity stuff like the banning of Zuckerbucks in Wisconsin by referendum, another special election victory for the Republicans that nobody will talk about. but it's true. Let's see. We also have a new member, the Sapphire Pavement. Thank you. John Waffle, H2P, for 10. Says, the thing I learned about New Mexico is that a lot of immigrants from the Midwest have moved in. Well, those would be technically not immigrants, but those would be people, movers. There are also a lot of big government workers in Santa Fe. That's true, although Santa Fe is not that big. It's like 50,000 people. The Meep Kid says, libertarians are little authoritarians or don't want to be adamant conservatives. Well, they're just... The Libertarian Party is just deranged, I'll say that. I don't really know what designation you're trying to get at, but Real Texan Politics says Trump endorsed Hung Cao in Virginia. I saw that, and it's good. I mean, he's the most viable candidate. He'll win the nomination. I don't know if he's going to win the general, but if Trump is really doing that good, I think it's possible he stands an outside shot. You know, it's not talked about enough, but he's a very strong candidate, very impressive resume. And for Virginia, I'd say he's very solid. You know, he's not going to be like a top 10 senator or anything like that, but maybe top 15 from a state that voted for Biden by 10 in 2020. I think it's a good thing. Stephen Knizik elaborates on that point and says, here's to Hung Cao, the man with the most meme-worthy name of the 24 election season. This is by far the best timeline still. Well, I mean, he already had a meme-worthy name in 2022, but, you know, now it's kind of like more talked about. He'll be a statewide candidate with an outside shot at victory, more so than somebody that most people wrote off in a congressional race in a year where you had 500 or 435 of them. John Waffle says, follow up to my question. A lot of people who I know who are known as hawks are starting to list Trump, including my brother. Well, they see what's going on in the Middle East, and even some of the people, maybe not the people that are like, in politics and political spheres, but a lot of people on the ground who have maybe had sympathy for neocons are starting to realize the fact that, yeah, there is a legitimate case to be made that Donald Trump's foreign policy just works. And people realize it. They realize what's going on now isn't working. You have people that are, pro-Israel, anti-Israel, pro-Ukraine, anti-Ukraine that don't like Biden, don't like what Biden's doing. And they just really realize that Trump is the better option in regards to this election cycle. And a lot of these people probably would have disagreed with that in the past. So that's true. But anyways, guys, we're going to get to the calls. And I wanted to talk about this important question. And I guess we got to kind of move this down a little bit here. But, yeah, there we go. Okay. But in terms of the biggest confidence and concern points, what is the biggest point of confidence? You've seen the past week. You see Trump doing all these rallies. You see quality over quantity. You see how he's out there. You see the energy levels being good. You see what's going on. Obviously, we see. And he's doing well. He's doing very well. And the polls are looking good. There's other metrics that are looking good. The economy is not looking good in many ways. All the metrics. And when they talk about the economy recovering or the low unemployment, it's patronizing. It doesn't work. It's patronizing. This is what people don't seem to understand. The difference between the Trump economy was that these talking points were just not true. They were exaggerations. Now they're true because now the unemployment rate is fake. Now the stock market is fake. I mean, inflation, you adjust for everything. It hasn't gone up very much. It doubled under Trump. Under Biden, it account for inflation and the wages compared to inflation. It's gone up by, how many percent? 2-3%? Like, you can't exactly say that, oh, this is some victory. This is some major thing, even if you want to say 10%. So whatever metric you look at, foreign policy, what's your biggest point of confidence? But also concern. Like I said, even if the polling error is big, Trump still likely wins, which was never the case before. Are you one of these special election people? I can't exactly say there's a point of concern, or is it like, are we going to turn out? Like, what is this? Is it money down the stretch? Do you think that Biden's going to come out and they're going to pump him up with some of Hunter's white magic powder, and he's going to go on that debate stage, and he'll be 45 years old again, and people are just not going to care about it. Like, what is the biggest point of concern as well? Everybody has a point of concern. Whether you want to admit it or not, there's something you can point to. Something. Because complacency, maybe it'd be complacency. Are you complacent? Do you feel like other people are going to be complacent? Because that is a problem if we let it be a problem. I don't think it's going to be as much of a problem as it was in 2022. Is it abortion? Again, not going to be as big of a problem as 2022. But what's the biggest point of confidence? What's the biggest point of concern? We're going directly to the people. We'll probably only get a few calls tonight, but if you're in the server, get in the live waiting room. We'll go from there. We'll start off with Magnanimous. Magnanimous, you are on the air. How's it going?
Hello, Red Eagle.
Yes.
What's up?
So, like I said, I don't know if you heard the stream, but we were talking about the biggest point of confidence and the biggest point of concern that you have about Donald Trump and about Donald Trump's chances in the 2020 or 2024 election, but also what's the biggest point of concern? Because, obviously I feel like I'm more confident than I've probably ever been this cycle that Trump is the favorite, but what's the biggest point of concern as well? What could be a caveat? So I'll let you explain what you feel like your biggest points are on each side.
Yeah, sure. It's nice to see you again. Well, the polls look good. The polls look very decent for Donald Trump. I mean, if you look at the swing states, Trump's leading in all of them. If you look at Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, it's like out of the margin of error. It's very positive if you think about it. I think Trump's going to win Georgia. I'm pretty sure Trump's winning Georgia at this stage. Like 80%, I'm certain that Trump's winning Georgia. I mean, if Trump doesn't win Georgia, Georgia's going to get called on election night, I'm pretty sure. If Trump doesn't win Georgia, it's over. If Biden doesn't win Pennsylvania, it's over. So it really comes down to Georgia and Wisconsin, which are going to be called on election night. And I'm pretty confident that Trump's going to win Georgia. Not really sure about Wisconsin. Wisconsin is definitely a more difficult state to win at this stage. But yeah, I'm confident. But if you based on the polls and based on the sentiment, and if you look at the issues, Trump has more support in the economy, he has more support in inflation, immigration, foreign policy. All of they do favor Trump. Biden is definitely in jeopardy when you think about this. Like, none of the issues which are very important to the majority of the voters in the United States, they don't favor Biden at this current stage. So I think Trump definitely is the favorite, but I will say Democrats have a very competent turnout operation. They do.
Yes,
I mean, whether you like them or not, you have to admit that they have a very competent turnout operation. Even in the 2020 election, Democrats were literally sending buses and vans to Democrat center metropolitan areas to make their voters steamroll the voting booth and the polls, and you know what I'm talking about, right? They have a very they do everything to win. And that is the only concern that I really have. That is the only real concern that I really have. If Joe Biden wins, I'm not trying to blackpill anybody. I'm not trying to blackpill anybody. But even if Joe Biden wins, I wouldn't be too shocked because they have such a competent turnout operation, unlike Republicans.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the thing that matters. But I mean we've heard it before, and we saw that with the Hillary Clinton. She's got all the field offices. We hear the same thing. She has all the money. We hear the same thing. But still, you're trying to get people to kind of, even if they have the good get out the vote operation, is there enough people at this point that will be enthused to turn out for Joe Biden? Does he have that favorability? Because we've even heard that they've stopped registering voters in some places because they're afraid that the people that they're registering, even if it's traditionally Democrat demographics, are going to turn out for Trump. So ironically, the party that talks about the voter suppression or whatever, these are the people that are afraid to register voters because they're afraid that it's going to backfire. It's going to actually hurt their ability to win re-election. So I think that you make a good point, and I actually agree with everything that you just said. I think that the turnout operation is something that we need to make sure that we can mitigate, especially in these Rust Belt states, because I'm feeling more confident. Party registration data is making me more confident. We have a lot of points of confidence, but we also do have a lot of points of maybe a few points of concern that we can't just ignore and be complacent about, because, it is true. We have to stay on guard, make sure we register people, but also get them out to vote is key too. So anyways, thank you, Magnanimous, for coming on the stream. I appreciate it.
No problem. Have a great day.
You too. All right, we can go live to Real Texan Politics. He's been waiting for quite some time, but here we go. Should be in the correct channel. Wait till we get a little bit of an unmute. Real Texan, are you there?
Yes. What's going on?
Well, doing pretty well. Good stream here, but, I think the question. Biggest point of confidence, biggest point of concern. What are these going to be in regards to the 2024 election for Donald Trump? It's looking up, but, what's your takeaway? Do you have the same answer, different answer?
I think as far as confidence goes, the polls are looking great for Trump, even at this point in the election cycle. I think there's also the mass boycotts among the progressives. They're not voting for Biden because they see him as a genocide enabler.
Yep.
As far as concern goes, turnout is definitely one. We could see some overconfidence. Maybe some of the DeSantis voters, they switched over to Biden for whatever reason.
I'm not worried about the DeSantis people, just for the record, but...
okay, well, fair enough, but... I'm the Max Twain types and such. But...
Yeah. The agitators, the people that we're going to do that regardless. But yeah, the what's it called? I was going to say... The maybe you think there's just like a potential base defection from some other portion or some people that
I could see that towards like RFK, but
do you think RFK takes more from Trump or more from Biden?
It probably depends on the state, but
yeah,
50-50 maybe. Other thing, I think polls, maybe there's a concern of overestimating Trump. Like, some of the margins that you see, maybe not extremely realistic.
Like +7 in Nevada?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I get it. I think it's all valid. I actually did this. I don't know if you saw the video earlier, but we did go over the polling errors from the midterms, and we put them in the 2024 map. And even if the polls were completely overestimating Trump, the way that they overestimated Republicans, take the average of the down ballot races, you name it, what actually would happen is Trump would still get 268, Biden would get 269, and Nebraska's second would decide it. So it just depends. Do I think there's going to be the same polling error we saw in the Rust Belt this time as last time? I don't think so. But I would like to see him maintain his margins, and I think that's the key, because I think you and I would probably both agree that if the polls maintain the same numbers that they have now all the way to Election Day, and we're running out because early voting starts in about less than 4 months in some places, that
right.
Donald, there's no way I could imagine him losing. There's virtually no way. And I'm not saying that we'd have to still be complacent at that point or whatever, but we would be in a very, very good position if that was going to be the case.
Right. And I could see the polls tightening a bit towards Election Day. They usually do that.
Yeah.
But I think at this moment, with how the polls are, is looking great for Trump.
Absolutely.
And I think you're already seeing Biden probably about to purchase more oil to make the prices go down.
Oh, yeah. I think he already has tapped more into the oil reserves. But again, is it going to make that much of an impact when Republican messaging is, I guess, kind of a little bit more multifaceted now than it was about inflation back in 2022, and that's their main focus? Biden can't get the fast food prices down. That's, I think, a really big thing. You talk about Americans and fast food, and now the messaging is what I touched base on a few months ago about look at the Chipotle prices, look at the McDonald's prices. There's no more dollar menu. There's no more Febueni at Subway. Every 12-inch sub is $5 or whatever. You don't have that anymore. Inflation is big, and when you look at stuff like that everybody can point to, because these places, these restaurants are nationwide, and Americans love their fast food. Well, this is also something that I feel like can really motivate some people. But anyways, Real Texan Politics, thank you for joining the stream. I appreciate it.
Right, and let's go Brandon Herrera.
That's true. Tuesday, and I think Dave was it Covey, the guy running against Dade Phelan. Vote for that guy if you live in that district, which I don't know how many people out there do in the crowd, but still, absolutely. There's a lot going on right now in politics. There's a lot going on, but we're going to be moving on to who was waiting. I think On Point Politics. On Point Politics was waiting the longest. So, On Point Politics, you are on the air. Are you there? He's muted right now, so we'll give him a second.
Hey, what's up, Rob? How you doing?
Hey, there you are. Doing well. I think that I feel like you probably know the question, but I'll ask it anyways. Yeah. What are your biggest points of confidence and concern about the 2024 election for Donald Trump? Because I feel like I'm more confident now, but what exactly is driving the confidence, and where are the caveats to that?
Okay, so my confidence when it comes to the 2024 presidential election, I mean, the polling data, I don't think people realize how ridiculously good the polling data looks. Like, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, yeah, he's ahead, but he's ahead. He's never been ahead Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania before. He's never been ahead this much in a place like Nevada. Like, the fact there's even a plus 13 poll out of there is absolutely ridiculous for Biden. Like, that is extremely abysmal. And so the polling looks extremely good for him. And the problem with Biden is that, just like Lalo says, he has no riz whatsoever. Like, there is nothing that Biden can basically attack Trump on. Every single issue, Trump could hit him back with a realistically good response. So I can't see how the debates help Biden, because it's not like 2020 where everybody's so sad all the time and you had the BLM riots and you had the coronavirus. We're going into a very different national environment this time. And so I'm extremely confident that Donald Trump is winning the election. My latest forecast model has Donald Trump winning with 320 electoral votes to Biden's 210. He picks up the swing states very easily. He gets Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania by like 6 to 9 points. He gets Georgia and Arizona by like 6 or 7, and he gets Nevada by about like 8. And if you actually look at the current polling and you apply like polling errors from like 2020, they're like somewhat within range with my model. And that goes for like most of the states. And so that basically has him picking up the states he lost. He picks up Nevada, and he picks up Minnesota and New Mexico.
So the point of that's a big one too. And I mean, we still haven't seen any polling from New Mexico. I'd love to see. I've said that for the past couple weeks. I don't know when we're going to get one. But in terms of the confidence, you're right. I agree. Not only is he up, he's up by a lot. He's up in states Republicans thought they never were going to win again. He's outside of the margin of error in some of them. You know, Florida, Texas, all the hopes for Biden in those states. Now he can't even, focus on Georgia and Arizona because he knows that those are probably, a waste of time. He's not campaigning much. When he is campaigning, he's making a fool out of himself. And he's the one outside the basement now. So there's a lot to look at that's good. And in terms of the charisma as well, he doesn't have the Riz factor. He doesn't have the X factor. Trump from behind can manipulate the media. He can do anything possible just because he has this unique ability to kind of claw his way back from anything. Biden doesn't really have that ability that we've seen so far. And it's going to take a lot for him to do that because he's in the opposite position that Trump was in 2020, and that's being generous, very generous to Biden. But still, in terms of the point of concern, though, what would you say that the number one point of concern would be? Because while it looks good, sometimes things that look good can easily be too good to be true, and I think we need to stay on watch about that and not be super complacent about it.
I definitely think there is a statistical chance Biden can still.
Are you there? I think we might have lost him. You still there? Okay, it was my fault actually. It was my problem. I wasn't connected. No, I'm back. That was actually me. I thought you dropped off for a second, but it was my connection. So you said that there's a statistical chance that Biden could still pull it off, and then I guess you cut off.
Okay, so I said that there's still statistical chance he can win. I think anywhere from like 270 electoral votes, so literally just like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and then like 281 with all those plus Arizona. I think that's probably a possibility, but I think it's very narrow that he actually gets that right now. I think Donald Trump at the very least wins with like 282, like getting Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Nevada, and losing the Nebraska second, losing Michigan and Arizona. But I do say the biggest point of concern for me is actually Trump supporters not turning out, not necessarily the other side turning out in big numbers. And like half my comment section on my videos is, oh, well, I'm not turning out because they're going to rig the votes. They're going to have illegals.
That's
voting,
a bad mindset to have. And that's why I tell people like the Tim Pools, like all these people, stop running with this narrative. We can address the problems when we need, if we need to, but we need to not demoralize people because that's the main problem that we have.
That's a big problem. And you know what's funny? You actually look at the polling now, Trump does better with registered voters than likely voters now. And I think the reason why that's happening is because we're actually going to see a way more MAGA electorate come out of the 2024 election compared to the past two cycles. And I think that now it's the more people turn out, the higher the turnout, the better it actually benefits Trump. Unlike last time where you kind of had this weird white suburbanite, coalition kind of come out for Biden, basically get him over the top by like 40,000 votes across 3 swing states. And you guys got to also understand something too. In 2016, Trump had a 37% approval rating. Clinton had a 41,
42, yeah.
And Trump was able to win because of third-party candidates. So it kind of, you could say that it brought her popular vote count down by around 3 percentage points. And I mean, the third parties combined for like 7% total. So if it weren't for third parties, Clinton probably would have won. And then in 2020, both candidate approval ratings went up. Biden was 9 points higher than Clinton. Trump gained around 8 points. So the net increase in popularity with both candidates was a wash. So everybody should have expected a close race. People like LTE, Biden's going to win Florida and Ohio's competitive. They have to be the stupidest people in the world because you just based on their approval ratings, you would have known that it was a competitive election. But now Trump's gone down like 2 points and Biden's fell like 12.
And they're so smug too, and that's another thing. And they weren't like this in many cases before the midterms. But,
no, they weren't.
All these people, all these headlines we see from the liberal counterparts and everything like that. Oh, his campaign strategy is terrible. They don't even understand the underlying factors behind it. And I hope that the Biden campaign feels the same way. And the other thing I'll say, in terms of what you said about turnout is, I don't believe Biden's going to get anywhere close to 81 million. It's a very rare circumstance. Even if we say all the votes are real, whatever, it's a rare circumstance that would have got him there in the first place. COVID, a very politically active community at large, and you had the woke wave and COVID that was able to give Biden an advantage. He doesn't have either anymore. Woke is winding down. It now hurts him. And on top of that, it helps Trump. It's socially acceptable to support Trump now, and it wasn't back then. And also, there's a lot of other issues like immigration. The main takeaway is, the midterms turnout was actually lower than it was in 2018. And that was before you had the mass mail-in system, everything. And Democrats still got less votes than Republicans in the midterms. So, I mean, it's something we got to take into consideration.
Well, I think the reason why you kind of have, people, the midterms, what if the polling error helps Democrats this time? That's, if you look at the past midterm cycles with Donald Trump, all of the polling errors during the midterms or the House popular vote are very narrow and off years. And when they are actually, during election cycles, the House popular vote always tends to outperform Trump And my friend Gold Crown Politics currently has it at around 4.5, and Donald Trump is leading the aggregate by like 1.5 to 2 points. So it kind of lines up with polling data as of right now. But also, too, you have very different coalitions. You think the black people that are going to vote for Trump now, that are first-time voters, voted in 2022 for Dr. Oz? Like,
Nope.
you got to
No way.
Like, it's yeah, exactly. No way. Yeah,
but that's
ridiculous.
the thing is how many of them are there. I think that is the more important question, because you see they go to the hood, they interview all these people. Yeah, man, we love Trump. How many of them have voted before a period? How many of them get out to vote? Like, that's the main takeaway, and you just can't, register all these people and expect them all to vote for Trump either.
And here's the thing. I think that the polling error this cycle will more than likely be worse than 2020.
You think that Trump's going to do that much better?
I think the polling error is going to be a lot worse, because not only now do you not have the polling data taking into account the same white working rural voters that are in rural Wisconsin, rural Iowa, even in Michigan, Pennsylvania. The polling errors are always terrible there.
They are.
And you even see now Pennsylvania is Trump's best state. And a lot of people thought, oh, well, Trump looks like he might be poised to get Pennsylvania before Wisconsin and Michigan. Some people were saying that in 2020 because that's what the polling data reflected. We've seen this before.
Well, the polls there are more accurate, usually, at least for the Trump races at the end of the day, too. That's important to note.
Yeah, and he's up by 2. And it's quite funny because, a month and a half ago, the state was actually the worst polling-wise for Trump. And this guy, LT, oh, well, Biden's up by 5 in a new poll and all this stuff and whatever. And now he's leading by 2, and he is very quiet on that issue. I think that's pretty funny that he hasn't said a word about that.
Yeah.
And so,
well, I mean, like even the donor map they like to use, it will show
Biden has more money than Trump,
but not from individual donors in Eastern Pennsylvania. You have the biggest drop off in support for Biden. That possibly could mean that they're not, replicating their original strong support for him. I don't know, but also it's important to note that Biden raised so much money because of George Floyd, because of COVID, because of all these little things. Donald Trump's not giving them a lot of ammo. And obviously, I'm not saying that certain things can't happen, because we know certain things will, but will they have the same effect? Is Biden going to, if BLM becomes a thing again, Biden doesn't benefit from it. If America burns under Biden and he's going to let it happen, that was an argument like a lot of people used to attack Trump from the right. And while I don't think it really benefited Biden, it might have made some people that were, wanted to support Trump or didn't like it, the BLM stuff, a little bit, questionable in their support. So that's another thing to take into consideration is, things going to shit under Biden make him look like shit, because that's what he is.
I actually think the only thing that really doomed Trump that COVID year, the only reason why he lost the election was because of the economic downturn from the actual virus. It wasn't even the virus itself. It wasn't people dying. It wasn't the BLM rise. It wasn't any of that. The thing that did him in was the economic downturn from the coronavirus, because he tried the economic card on Biden. And yes, it was effective, but it wasn't effective enough back then.
Yes, and that's another thing, because when you have, and I'm one of the first people to say the 13 keys are not the best way to predict an election, because they don't fully gauge public opinion. But it is true that the importance of the issue did decline, because, even though people, I don't think, blame Trump for the economy in full, he wasn't able to make it the number one issue, because before COVID, without BLM, the number one issue was the economy, and no Democrat could effectively counter Trump on the issue. But still, our economy, besides the unemployment rate or whatever, which already was going down, it is worse now by most metrics than the economy was back then, in terms of how fast the stock market's growing compared to inflation as a whole, wages, wage growth, new jobs, non-existent. So, and they're all going to illegals.
Well, the funny part about the 13 keys model is that if you actually look at it, it's more of a popular vote predictor, like a popular vote winner predictor than an actual election predictor. And for you guys saying, well, oh, he predicted Trump in 2016, this guy's on record saying he thought Trump was going to win the popular vote, and he didn't.
A lot of things
So
he said, yeah.
Huh?
He said a lot of things. I mean, that's the important thing, is that he said that Trump would struggle to get the nomination. He wanted Trump kicked off of the ballot with the Colorado case that the Supreme Court ruled 9-0. He said Trump would be impeached and removed if he won in 2016. That never happened. They did impeach him over nonsense, and he acted like, well, this does the scandal key, but in reality, does it really do the scandal key when Trump's approval goes up after? Like, I can't exactly say that it would. I think the guy's just a partisan hack at this point.
I think this year he's going to be embarrassed. I think he's
Yeah.
seriously going to be embarrassed because the keys, the way he has them, doesn't make any sense. Oh, well, Afghanistan wasn't actually a failure. Really? Really?
Yeah, well, that's the thing that sunk Biden's approval rating in general.
Exactly. So that's the thing. Like, even me, if I was him, I would simply make that key, true just because of the or false, just because of the fact that his approval rating, that's what dipped his approval rating.
Yeah.
So even if I, as a person, didn't think it was that bad, the fact his approval rating tanked after that should make the key false. Like, you're not going to dip 15 points in favorability in 3 months because of one issue that supposedly wasn't bad. Like,
Public perception, and that's key. And one more question I'll ask you, because we do have a lot of people still waiting, is about of the 7 key swing states, what would you say that is the most crucial, or the one that you have the most reservations about? Because you seem very bullish about Trump's odds, and you back it up with some pretty knowledgeable tidbits and election models and whatnot. But of the big 7, what's the one state you fear the most about? Is it Michigan? I assume it's one of the Rust Belt 3, and it seems like it's probably going to be Michigan or Wisconsin. What do you say about that?
The one that I fear the most is probably Arizona. You have that Maricopa County. It's just growing too fast. Too many white suburbanites there that just vote for Democrats, even though they are Republicans, and they vote for the Secretary of State candidate by 10, but they somehow vote for freaking what was her name, Katie Hobbs. Like, come on, it's ridiculous. Like, how are you gonna vote Secretary of State Republican, but then vote Katie Hobbs Democrat?
It's a midterm year, and I mean, I'm not as worried about Arizona as you are in that regard, but it is true that, it's not what it used to be. I'll say that, and we know how their elections, I think this time it's going to be run more smoothly. I'd like to hope, but I mean, we'll see. But Arizona, I mean, I think a lot of people actually probably share your opinion, despite the polling. But anyways, On Point Politics, thank you for coming on the stream. I appreciate it. Huh?
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
Can I get a shameless plug? I'm at 11.5K.
Sure, go for it.
All right, guys. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I literally hit 11K yesterday, and I'm already at 11.5K. So the past
Those are
few
big
days
numbers.
Great. Yeah, so the numbers have been great. So literally just look up On Point Politics and you'll find me. It's On Point Politics with Lester Tellis. Do you mind if I link it in the chat, actually?
I mean, sure, go ahead.
Fine. Okay,
ahead.
Thank you.
All right, yep, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
All right, you're welcome.
All right, we're going to go to SoCal. We'll do SoCal. He's been waiting for a long time. SoCal, you are on the air. You're muted. Are you there? He might be off the he might be away from the computer or whatever. I'll put him. We'll skip him for a second. Actually, I'll do super chats because we have a few super chats to get to. Here we go. Dalton Portwood says, "What's the plan if we lose 24? Will national populism fall into obscurity like modern day neoconservatism?" I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. I know that there's going to be a fight for the soul of the party for sure. It's going to be a lot more brutal than it was in 2024 in terms of who, tries to claim the MAGA mantle. I don't know who that's going to be, but, we're not going to go back to the days of old. And I don't know who the nominee is going to be in 2028 regardless. So keep that in mind. M says early voting started for Nevada Senate and House. All Nevadans need to register Republican and vote for Gunter and the conservative House candidates. Bring friends and family. Well, I don't really think Gunter's got much of a shot, but we'll see. If he wins, that would be a big upset, though. Quantum Football says, do you think the reason that Matt Rosendale isn't running for anything is because he's the VP pick? Absolutely not. There's no way. Trump's not going to pick somebody to the right of him. Like I've said, the role of the VP is that he's going to pick somebody that can expand his coalition. It's not necessarily somebody that's going to appeal to all of the people that are, in his main core sphere. That's what he's there for. You don't want somebody who spits in the face of those people, but you don't want to necessarily double down too much to be a liability. Rosendale's not running for re-election because Rosendale is, scandals. They may be bogus scandals, but that's kind of why. Here we go. SoCal, now he's here. I'll bring him back in. SoCal, are you there this time?
I'm here.
All right. So, like I said, 2 questions. What's your biggest point of confidence? What's your biggest point of concern for Trump's chances in 2024?
All right. So, I'm going to keep this relatively short because I know there are a lot of people else who want to speak. Number one thing, and I go really in depth into this on my Substack, SoCal Populist.
Another shameless plug. SoCal. I did read it. I read the Substack. It's good.
Yeah, but really fundamentally, Trump was 43,000 votes away from winning last time. Since then, Biden's cratered like 20 points net favorability. Every issue now that's come to the forefront favors Trump. He basically has a 4 of 268, and he's not defending as many states this time. Like, there's no defending Florida or like Ohio or Iowa, and North Carolina's not really, I'd argue, in play.
So you're saying that you'd rather play offense than play defense, especially if you are Donald Trump.
Yeah, I feel like Trump was really on defense in 2020, and even in 2016, I guess to an extent. But you could argue that Hillary had to go to the Rust Belt at the end. But then I guess the number one point of pessimism, and I think Trump's going to win. But it would have to be the fact that Biden is a relatively normal polling error in the Rust Belt away from winning. And while I think it's probably more likely that polling there underestimates Trump, just based off of historical trends, it is still a possibility that like there could be like a 3-point polling miss in PA and Biden takes it. So, I think Trump has a very good chance of winning, but I wouldn't totally discount the possibility that Biden just outperforms the polls a little bit in the Rust Belt and he gets the win.
Yeah. Well, I kind of agree. I think that this is something that people need to understand. I think it's something that, obviously looks good, but people need to vote. That's what it comes down to. You look at Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. These are still very close states. I'm not ready to say that I could rely on some congressional district in Nebraska that is very volatile and that was one of the most left-moving places back in the 2020 election. I can't rely on that. So, we need people out and voting. We need people. The registration data looks good in Pennsylvania. There's a lot of metrics that look good in Pennsylvania for Donald Trump. I really refuse to believe that, this is a very hard state to win. But, if the polls are the way they are then I'd be extremely confident he's going to take at least one of those 3. But still, there's always the possibility of a polling error. So thank you, SoCal, for coming on. He's muted. But we're going to go now to ASNS. ASNS, you are live on the air. How's it going?
Hi, Rep. Long-time stream chatter, first-time call-in.
Nice.
So when it comes to the 2 questions, the confidence and concern points, I don't really have that many numbers, that much data, because you've already pretty much gone over all of the relatively important polls. What I really what's really been boosting my confidence is more so the anecdotal. So I live in a very blue state. I think I've posted before in the chat that I'm from New York. And some of my more left-leaning friends, since there's not too many ways to keep your echo chamber there if you're a Republican, a lot of them were very gung-ho in 2020 when it came to Biden, or at least anybody but Trump.
Yep.
And over the past 4 years, many of them have either expressed disillusionment, talked shit about Biden, whether it's the age and they'll still vote for him, hold their nose and vote blue.
Are they like more of the center left types, or are they more of like the further left, like Bernie-crat types?
So more of the center left. I live in New York in the metro, and so by default I vote blue.
Yeah.
Not so much the neon hairs, but a lot of them have been expressing, especially, a sort of okay, now I get it. Where before, if any of my other friends or myself told them that we were a Republican or voting Trump, it would be not discussed, but being thrown off. And now it's been turned into not so much of a faux pas. And then the other thing that has really boosted my confidence in terms of the anecdotal is that any of the Republicans that I know in my area, including my family, who expressed a sort of either they're a moderate Republican and they express sort of a positive attitude toward RFK, not for his positions, but for his personality.
The name?
He's a good person, even if I disagree with him. And the separate from that, the libertarians that were saying, "Oh, he's anti-vax, I'm going to go for him." The Libertarian convention was an absolute disaster for RFK.
More so than for Trump, I feel like, if people
completely,
watched it.
Because, for two reasons. One, because a lot of people now that I know have expressed very negative opinions of RFK in the past 48 hours, saying, "Oh, well, I didn't know this or that about him," or "he's even more left than Biden," which, of course, was a line that Trump was putting out, but it wasn't really falling on communicative ears. But also the fact that even if he's not involved with the administration, the fact that Vivek kind of went out as a primer to Trump the night before, I watched the whole thing. And while there are, of course, some disagreements about certain things like completely open drug use policy or something like that, he basically became a sort of like, well, I'll make you able to tolerate things that Trump says that you might not agree with. And since he's able to speak the libertarian language, especially with his reading of their literature, they had like a whole 30-minute discussion on that. A lot of the people in my social circle who didn't like Trump for the exact opposite reasons, because he didn't go far enough, have again warmed up to him as well, he's better than Biden, and if we don't take him, we're just going to hand it to Biden because we're 3% of the vote. We're not going to get anything ourselves.
Yeah, and that's I mean, that's something a lot of people in the real world. I mean, there's different types of libertarians. The people that go to the Libertarian convention are not probably, even as normal as your average libertarian, which probably has a little bit of an edge to them as well. But I mean, it's true. It's 100% true. A lot of people don't talk about the anecdotal stuff. I think it's, obviously, saying like, oh, well, I think that Trump's going to win Rhode Island because I see 2 Trump signs or whatever. I think that probably should be thrown in the garbage.
If that were the case, he would have won New Hampshire.
Exactly. But in terms of what you're saying, you're right. And you're touching base on certain people that have moved in certain directions. Basically, you're saying that you've got a social, people in social circles that are kind of like going on this like Bill Maher style arc where it's like, even if they still lean left, they're not as enthused or they're more understanding or whatever. And I think in the real world that does translate to some sort of disaffection. And do you think that, and before we get to the concern part, do you think in terms of New York, you feel like Trump just being there or making even though he's probably not going to win the state, we know, just going to the Bronx, like going to these places, does that at least show a state that is not really in play, that they care or that they matter, and that he touches base on issues that they do care about, even if they don't like him personally?
Yeah, so a lot of the New York internal politics is not from an outside perspective. People usually talk upstate and downstate. They say, well, there's everybody has their own definition of upstate. I'm not even going to get into that. But basically, the New York Metro versus everyone else, except Buffalo usually tosses in with the New York Metro and Albany.
Yep.
A lot of people in the state basically see it as a one-party rule state, and so they get enthused whenever a Republican shows up at all. To this day, I still have friends talking about the time that Trump went to Bethpage. And the thing is, while New York isn't in play, those House seats are especially vulnerable this year because
Presidential year, yeah.
and anecdotal, not even just because of the presidential, but because while some of the Republicans from the House, from Long Island and Westchester, they tried to pull like a moral high ground move in removing George Santos. I've seen it backfiring a lot, and I'm really afraid for that. That sort of gets into my concerns, so I'll speak on that in a moment. But the fact that Trump was out here has really, I think, galvanized some of the people who weren't going to bother voting, because I live in New York and my vote doesn't matter. So even if it doesn't help electoral college wise, whether it's House seats or local government,
You think it'll help the electoral college, or
No,
you think it'll
will
help the
not-
popular
will
vote is what
not.
I meant to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
It will help the popular vote.
Yes.
And then getting into those concerns, just because I did hint at them before, a lot of people around, again, my social circles, I can only speak to what I've seen, but I work in a white collar sort of position, so I hear from a lot of different types of people.
Mm-hmm.
The people that were more likely to vote for the Republicans, I've seen a lot of them be mad that they removed Santos, not because Santos is a moral grand model, but because they feel that it wasn't the right way to remove him and that they shouldn't have been able to kick him out. And so a lot of them are saying, well, if they're going to do it for this, why haven't they done it for X Democrat that did this? And the fact that the House Republicans from this metro area sort of led the charge against Santos from the right really does not help their popularity.
So you think down ballots where the concerns are in terms of Republicans in the state, and you feel like people might vote Trump but leave the rest of their ballot blank, or
vote if they have a different nominee in the conservative box or the pro-life box, they'll take those. And just even leaving it blank is a major concern, because while like Suffolk County has been moving red since 2016, Nassau County has been sort of purple. It has been moving to the right, but it's still very much in play, even more than Suffolk County. And then Westchester is the same with Nassau. Just the fact that these trends are happening even in the most minute ways means that we could lose a couple of seats there just because of how vulnerable they were to begin with.
Yeah. No, I completely understand. I think there's a lot of questionable things regarding the House in New York. Are we going to be able to hold X seat or whatever? These are questions we're going to have answered, and also what does like the caving of these rhinos, is it really going to help them pick off Biden voters or Democrats? I'm not so sure to what extent it could. But I think that the House is still going to be on a knife's edge. I think that we're probably a little bit favored. I think if Trump wins, we might flip a few seats in like Pennsylvania, Michigan, you name it. And also, I think the California Republicans will probably hold. They've held the line better than a lot of the ones in New York. But anyways, thank you for coming on ASNS. I appreciate the call.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just one quick thing. Long Island for statehood and Vivek for VP.
Yep. New York. I think New York probably wouldn't want, the Republicans in New York City probably wouldn't want to hear that. But nevertheless, I've actually never heard that before, but it would be another red state. So we'll go to King Omega. King Omega, you are on the air. We can hear you, just unmute. Okay, he's not. I don't think he's ready. We can go to the Real 1976. The Real 1976, you are on the air. We can hear you. We can't hear. Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, oh, there you are.
Yeah.
So, biggest point of confidence and concern about the 2024 election for Trump. You can just let us know what your biggest confidence and concern points are personally for you about this election.
So my biggest confidence about the election is the polling. I'm seeing, like, of course, in like some of these blue states, they're going up in Colorado, not much in New Mexico, but like you see some of these blue states, like Colorado, even New York. I think that is a positive. Then you go around and see people's opinion. A lot of people, like I talked to, were always anti-Trump, and now they're not. It just shows you where we are right now and how abysmal Biden is as a president. I think if I was going to say the election now, Trump wins, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if Biden pulls this off because of the polling situation.
So you're saying that you think the polls are you wouldn't. So you say you would be surprised if Biden pulls it off, or you wouldn't be because of the polls?
No, not the polls. About at the polls.
Like the vote, like turnout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, a lot of people are saying, like, Democrats have a base. I mean, they have that situation. I don't think there's any problems going on. I think it's really just the problems that, I mean, I know Republicans are getting with this, but we need to start early voting. I mean, I hope a lot of people are doing this in states, but we need to really focus on this
and
on that, because that is the priority to win these elections. I mean, we sat in 2022 saying, for example, John Fetterman wasn't going to win. We all laughed at that, but he comes up. The whole debate happened after the early voting, and guess what? He won the election, and a lot of other Democrats got enthusiastic too. And yes, that was not a presidential year, but the fact is, like, Democrats know the system, and I still think, I mean, my opinion in that area, some Republicans do think that the system is rigged, and we need to get that out of people's heads.
Well, I think, yeah, in terms of their ability to vote, I think it needs to be, our mindset needs to change more. And the early vote, I never understood the early vote. See, I understand the mail-in skepticism. I don't think we should have these mail-in ballots. Everybody, especially in Nevada, I think we're going to beat it in Nevada. We did in most races in 22, but Pennsylvania in particular, they rely on this system, and you don't have to, mail your ballot in. You can drop it off yourself. You can do it. And, I think that Trump, I know he'll do this. I am confident he's doing it because he is changing his tune. But when states are starting their first days of early voting or when ballots go out, that's when you go to those states and you make sure you get out and vote. And you obviously go back a few times if it's a competitive state. But yeah, you want to make sure that people are voting as early as possible if they already know which way they're voting, because you don't know. I put a poll out. We did this a stream or two ago. How many people didn't vote for Trump last time around, or didn't actually vote? I think it was around 30%. Some of that might be because they weren't old enough, but I mean, a good chunk of that was also, you had people saying, "Oh, I was sick that day," or this happened or that happened. It's like, you can't afford that. If Democrats are doing it, that means we need to do it. I know the Democrats will still probably vote early more than Republicans, at least by mail, but we do need to make sure that wherever we can use the system, we use it to our advantage. And honestly, it should help, You know, if you're like talking to people who aren't even like registered on election day, and you know there's registration at the polling place. Some places might have that, and there's early voting. You make sure that they do it right away, right now, and that's an extra vote that you wouldn't ordinarily have. And if they flip from Biden, that's net 2 votes from 2020. If they didn't vote the last time, that's a net 1 vote that Trump picks up that otherwise he wouldn't have had. So it is true. People need to stomach it. I don't understand what the real opposition to that is. And I think I agree with pretty much everything that you've said. So, Real 1976, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, so we will go to King Omega next, but I do want to get to the super chat that we got. Noah Bowdy says, how much should we expect the polls to tighten as they move to a registered voter model? Well, they're already in the registered voter models. You're probably thinking about likely voter model. It depends. You know, when they poll likely voters this far out, that doesn't really tell us much. I mean, a likely voter in May is a lot different than a likely voter come September or October, which is why they don't do it. So honestly, the polls could shift away from Trump a little bit, but even the polls that are likely voters, you see Trump still doing well in them now. I mean, Biden doesn't really lead a lot of those samples either. Sometimes Trump goes up, sometimes he doesn't. I think it just depends. I think we're going to have to see. But if the polls are the same as they are right now in October, I probably would up Trump's odds of victory to like 80%. But, you know, we still have to be careful. As a lot of these callers are saying, there's a reason why we're talking about the complacency factor being the big driver here. So we'll bring in King Omega this time. King Omega, you are on the air. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So again, asking the same question to everybody. Biggest point of confidence for Trump, biggest point of concern. Where are you at regarding this these two things at this point in the election cycle?
So I'm confident that Donald J. Trump will be able to flip Georgia. I think that all the black people in Georgia, they're very disillusioned with Biden. There's not as much of a sense of urgency to get out there and vote. I think like in 2020, there was a huge sense of urgency that people need to vote or else like Trump's going to do all this or Biden's going to do all that. I think Georgia this time, there's not as much. Georgia had ridiculously high turnout in 2020. I think that one will go in Trump's column, and then you can add that to Trump's firewall, so you'll have 251. So that brings 19 more electoral votes. I think I'm confident in Arizona, too. I think that Arizona, what happened, like people were just turned off or turned down with long lines. And I think that the RNC has been promoting more mail-in voting. So I think that, yeah, Arizona is a very heavy mail-in state. I think that one will go to Trump, too. They've seen, like, what's happened at the border. Like, I think Kari Lake did well in Yuma, which is border town. Yeah, so that's 262. And then, like I was saying in 2023 last year, I think Nevada goes to Trump, too, the other of the three Sunbelt states. I think, yeah, like... Clark has been moving to the right. Washoe County has been moving to the right. Or no, I don't think about Washoe, but at least Clark has. And all the rules heavily for Trump. I think that this is finally the time Trump does it. It just keeps getting closer and closer. So
I agree. And I don't think you're going to see 68. A leftward shift in Reno. It might maybe like by half a point, but the Clark is where it matters. So I agree on Nevada. I agree on Arizona. I agree on Georgia. In terms of that, I agree. But I'll let you continue.
Okay, so now where I'm concerned with the Rust Belt, I think that Trump is off to kind of a slow start in Wisconsin. He hasn't really visited it much in this year. It's been mostly Pennsylvania and Michigan, but he hasn't been to Wisconsin. And now it is true that the polls will underestimate him in Wisconsin. especially up in Trump just spends more time in Wisconsin. He'll start surging in the polls. It is true Wisconsin polls will underestimate him. They've done it both times. I'm not really concerned there, but I'm concerned with complacency. Like, I don't know, maybe Pennsylvania seems like, of those three, it seems the hardest to flip. Michigan, there's all those auto workers, and then there's all the Muslims that are very disillusioned with
time,
Biden.
yeah.
They're the genocide Joe crowd. They're the genocide Joe crowd. There's that huge Muslim population. They're not going to want to vote for Biden. Pennsylvania, not as much. Pennsylvania is a very close state. I think that, like, Joe Biden running as Scranton Joe, that it's not as bad, but it's still going to be a factor. Pennsylvania. So yeah, of all the states, will be the one that'll determine the election, I think, because if you just get 19 more electoral votes, Georgia plus Pennsylvania equals 270.
Yep.
So, and another point of concern too is, like, if they put Donald Trump in jail, the Democrats keep trying to put him in jail. He's in trial right now, and we don't even know. Like, there might be pressure on the jury to put a conviction. I don't know. It might be hung because they just caught Michael Cohen lying. The defense has been doing a good job, but I don't know. And then there might be another trial that starts up. It's not likely, but there might be another trial that starts up before the election too.
That could backfire. I honestly don't think they're going to do that, because I think that they realize that past a certain point they're playing with fire. Their best hope, I think, I don't even know. Like, that's the thing. You don't know what's better for Trump, an acquittal or a conviction, jail, whatever. I do think it's interesting, though, that you are the first person out of all the 5+ callers that brought up the concern being the jail, because I think that it is still there, but there is this legitimate kind of claim that he's more likely to get off now than he was a couple months ago.
So let me explain why I think that jail time might be bad. I don't think that people are going to be moved by the conviction itself, but I think that if he's put in jail, he's not going to be able to campaign as much. And I think that, like, you could say, oh, well, Joe Biden did that in 2020. He didn't leave his basement. But I think that the reason he won was because, like, the FBI was colluding with Twitter to not show the Hunter Biden stuff. I think that there was a lot of stuff helping Biden then. There's not as much helping Trump. They're all out to get Trump. If he's just going to be in jail cell, it's going to be hard for him to campaign. I think that if he's able to campaign and also if he's just put in jail and he can't do anything, he's just convicted, that's going to help him. But he's trapped there.
Yeah.
I think the
audio is breaking up a little bit. The audio is breaking up.
He might be dead on arrival, losing sadly. Nope. I think over 40%. But I think, if he's just trapped in jail, I don't think that's going to.
You don't think that him being in jail is going to help him, is basically what you're saying. Is that correct?
Help him.
All right, I'm sorry. It's just the audio was cutting off. I gotta let him go a little bit because I just couldn't hear what he was saying. But anyways, thank you, King Omega, for calling in. But the audio just kept cutting. I couldn't hear. It wasn't on my end, unlike the other time. But I appreciate the calls. UNSC Connor says, what's up with the Libertarians, man? Finally get recognition and they boo Trump and Vivek? Because these are children. These are children. These are people that go to the Libertarian Party National Convention. That's your demographic you're dealing with. So that's the way it is. But in terms of what the previous caller was saying, in terms of the jail thing, I still don't think they're going to give it to him but it is possible that it could backfire, and I think it's possible you could say it could hold him back. I do think that there is something to the whole, like, look at the numbers, though, because he's been in trial. He already can't campaign, but, and I'm not going to say not being able to campaign at all is going to help him, but I think campaigning less and picking your battles a little bit less frequently, especially right now, it's kind of helping him. You know, Biden is campaigning about the same level as Trump. I think that's fair because you produce a lot of gaffes that way if you're Biden. And Trump is kind of able to, I don't know, do the Biden strategy of 2020, but he's like perfected it in a way that helps him. There's a lot of stuff going on there. But in terms of the last caller, we got two more calls. I don't know how to pronounce. Let me see. I could try. Viral Libertatum 17. We'll let this guy in. We'll let in V. V, you are on the air. How's it going?
Great to hear from you, Rep. I'm glad to be on the show. I've been watching your channel since 2019, so I've been around for quite.
Well, it's great to hear. I mean, that was the first year of the existence of Rep, so it's been a while. But in terms of the show question for the callers today. What is your biggest point of confidence for Trump, and what is your biggest point of concern, and why do you feel that way about this election?
So my biggest point of confidence, I think, is that I think we've been seeing more on the ground that the whole kind of game the media has been playing with people, it's just not working anymore. And at least in my experience, part of what I do, I actually am a music director at a pretty much 100% black church. It's actually quite funny. Usually when I'm running rehearsals, I'm literally the only white guy in the building. But I can't tell you how many times I have conversations with these people. And so many of them, they're not just open to voting for Trump. They're open to voting Republican down the ballot. And much like me, you know, they care about the border. They care about the fact that their grocery prices are going through the roof. And, you know, much like one of the other callers, I'm from New York. So they're even complaining to me about how congestion pricing is soon going to be an issue. And we're all going to have to cough up $15 just to go south of 60th Street. So I feel like nobody's really paying attention to, you know, the orange plump's bad. Oh, he's going to be in jail. You're voting for a criminal. Like, it just doesn't work anymore, even with people that I know that aren't so involved in politics.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And for these people, like what percentage? So if I could gauge this, because it is interesting, and I think that anecdotes like these are valid. Were these people Democrats before? And did they vote in 2020? And if they didn't, will they vote in 24 if they're voting for Trump? Are they registered? Like, these are some intriguing questions.
Most of them, they are independents, but they've been voting Democrat because that's what the media really has been telling them to do. But many of them, they do think for themselves, and they've simply said, listen, you know, I voted Democrat down the ballot, but clearly I don't think this is really what's going to be right for the future. And, you know, a number of them actually did immigrate here from Africa. And they, particularly the Nigerians, know just how messed up an election can be. I mean, they always tell me all the time, oh, elections don't work over there back in our former homeland. You know, you have all these major politicians pocketing millions of dollars and having goons at the polling sites, intimidating people. So, you know, they've seen all of this firsthand. A number of them have. Even the kids that were born here in America, you know, they're seeing it too.
Yeah. And I think that in terms of the shift, I mean, it is real. I hope it does carry over, and it's not just in New York City. I hope it's in Philadelphia. I think it will be. I mean, demography in general, trends usually are persistent in different areas of the country if the demography is similar. Do you think that these people do you think that there's like a more of an openness to voting Republican among like the black immigrants or like the second generation Nigerians compared to like your average black American that's probably had more of a history that's deep rooted in the Democrat Party? Do you see a difference there possibly?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I haven't really so much talked more so to, African Americans that have been here for, I wouldn't say centuries, but for a long enough time where, there's a lot of lineage. But again, I feel absolutely it's a door that's starting to open.
Yeah.
Time will only tell just how much it accelerates. I mean, I would absolutely love it if it gets to a point where, it becomes more of a 50-50 kind of demographic to the point where we can see a state like New York become competitive. Although I wouldn't really jump so much on that bandwagon too much because as a working musician, almost everybody I work with is still overwhelmingly liberal. So,
well, that's true. It's the industry. But,
which kind of leads into, the whole pessimistic side of
yeah.
all of this. I know, very interesting segue. I feel like as we get closer to the election, I think we're going to see maybe not so much something out of left field from the people in power and the mainstream media. But I think as we get closer, I mean, I don't think we're going to see any Wisconsin polls showing Biden up by 17 points like we did in 2020. But I think they may start to gradually push poll Biden a little more and then push poll him just a teensy bit more. And they might gradually do it to the point where the media is going to start running away with, oh, Biden's getting a little polling bump. And they're going to try and do everything they can to really demoralize us and get us not to vote, because I think even they know that, especially, and I think a lot of the people watching the stream can agree with this, to a lot of us conservatives, this election is a final battle.
Oh, yeah.
Many of us feel this right here, this is what's either going to make or break the republic. And I think there are a lot of conservatives out there, especially in my neck of the woods, that feel if this election doesn't go our way, our vote really doesn't matter that much anymore.
No, yeah. I mean, this is it. This is our country. The border crisis, because this is first term. People will say, Trump's second term, a lot of people now are saying it's going to be better than the first. I agree. But that also likely means that even if Biden's second term is a repeat of his first, that's bad in and of itself. We will not have a country. It's not even just about the economy. It's about the border. It's about everything. Everything is out of control. The gaslighting, people are fed up. The question is how fed up are they? Will we see unforeseen things? I don't know what they could possibly throw at Trump anymore. I mean, they've hit him with everything. Maybe the DC trial gets expedited or something. But, I mean, Trump gained when he was on this trial. I know it'd be different if it's election season. I know there's a lot of factors at play. Could it backfire? Yes. Could they try to hammer that home? I don't know what their final strategy is going to be, but we got to make sure that they don't get the final say in who wins the battle. But anyways, V, thank you for calling. I appreciate the call.
Anytime. And I love watching your content as always.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, we have one more caller. We'll get to. We have super chats as well. We got 846 people. Again, we've been going live for 2 hours. This is the last call for super chats. Make sure if you have any final super chats, send them in now. I'll get to them after the final call. But we got one from Bob KMIT saying, what effect do you think RFK will have on this very tight election? I think that, the debate is who is he going to take more from. I think the effect's going to be similar to Gary Johnson. I think he probably takes a little bit more away from Biden than he takes away from Trump. And I think that Trump attacking him, because the polls started to go in the opposite direction. He was starting to help Biden, and then Trump hit him back, or he hit him, he attacked him, and then he swung the other way. He's just a grifter. He's going to get like 3% of the vote or so, may even get less than that at the end of the day. He's not going to have that big of an impact whatsoever. And again, it's like another $50 million, $100 million sinking ship at this point, and he's just grifting. He's trying to get the support from conservatives, but then he also supporting this environmental authoritarianism, supporting a lot of different things, actually. The late-term abortion, like, you're not going to be able to pull this off. But final caller, none other than stream moderator and longtime OG caller Lalo is back. He's going to go last, but anyways, you're on the air. How's it going?
Oh, can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
So your question was?
Well, the question of the day, of the stream, is what are your biggest points what's your biggest point of confidence for Trump? And what's your biggest point of concern for Trump? Because this is an election. Things look pretty good. Liberals are admitting things look good for Trump, but, still, there's probably points of concerns that people have as well. So we'll do the pros, we'll do the cons. Go for it.
I've got you. The extended release white pill right here. The truth is that Donald Trump is the onset favorite to win the horse race. When we're looking at the stallion, Donald is leading in every single swing state. You can have some sort of detractors saying that, well, Wisconsin is close. There's a margin of error to be respected. I'm saying no to all these charges. In fact, when you're looking at it on the basis, let's ask the average Wisconsinite whether or not they were better off under Donald Trump or with Joe Biden's presidency. And I have a banger right here. When we look at the direction of the country, we can sample that right now. What you'll notice is that about negative 44% are actually in favor of this direction of the country. The perception is as bad as it's ever been. In fact, it hasn't been this bad since about 2008, when things were even worse, actually. And also, beyond this, we have 2020 in November, the direction of the country was negative 29. So that's about 15% worse than when it was when Trump lost. And so that is to say that it's very materially clear that Trump is going to be the odds favorite. And of course, in a presidential election where you have two major parties, it's going to be close regardless. In fact, McCain lost by less than 10%, despite everything on paper pointing to him losing by, let's say, 20, which is to say, of course, that while Trump might only win by 3%, that is a goddamn supermajority in the respect of the polarization we live in. And, even beyond this point, we also have the fact that the approval rating for Joe Biden was a benign one in 2020. We had a guy who had a positive approval of about 3 percentage points, depending on that exit poll, whereas obviously Donald Trump is all over the place, but certainly not that popular. Now we see that Joe has cratered, whereas Trump has stayed about the same. And the truth is that if you have one athlete who has not aged in 4 years and another guy who's like a 35-year-old running back, the guy's toast. It's over. The guy's working on 2 phantom ACLs. It's going to be the case that Joe Biden's disapproval is going to be way too heavy to actually fix. And some people might
I'll even cut in here and say that I think that Trump is the example of somebody that has multiple primes in their career. I think that the Trump we've seen now it's like a fine wine Trump. He fits because there's all this talk about fatigue. I don't see the same fatigue. I see Trump, he's obviously, it's not election season yet, but he's still got his base. He's still intact. He's winning people over. He's winning donors over, people, everybody that he needs to put this victory together.
He's very much like a Carson Palmer, maybe a Adrian Peterson, a little less controversial at that. I will say, though, that with this election, there is some pessimism to be had. A couple of these would be the money. The money is definitely not favorable towards Trump overall, cash on hand. That being said, the trend has been inverting recently. And even beyond this, I have some more copium for y'all, and it's grade A, because when we look at the factors that would make somebody lead in a race, you have to consider what is changing circumstantially. These chief issues, such as abortion, that issue, the longer that we go over this overturning of Roe v. Wade, the less of a thing it'll become. Now, when we look at the money front, it's depreciating returns at best because, of course, Joe Biden has had more spending than Donald Trump thus far, and yet is still losing. And so God knows how much money he's going to need to invert that. In fact, he'd probably have to give everybody a 20 boner to get them to win, okay? There's not enough money in the world for this to happen. And so when we're looking at it one way, this sort of like Michael Bloomberg approach of just splurging is not going to cut it. And when we look at the 2020 primary, that was really the truth. Now, moving forward, I do think that when it comes to negative aspects, there is some questions as to how this debate will go for Trump, because anything other than a victory would be an L, if you know what I mean. It's a very slanted sort of thing that we're working with, where the expectations and the bar for Biden is so low that it's hard to really overtake those expectations that are so low for him. And what I mean is that the guy clearly is just on the decline cognitively. I think more people are pointing this out. In fact, when you look at the polling in 2020, it was about half the country that thought he had dementia. I bet you that's about 75% now. And so whereas most liberals back then could just vote for Biden not looking into it, the truth is that they can't pretend that his shit doesn't stink. The diaper's brown. There's no denying it, okay? At this point, you're coping and saying, well, he's just a little stupid, but I'll vote for him anyway. And that confirmation bias only takes you so far. If we saw a cognitively slipping, if he ran for a third term, you could really see that some people would say, you know what, fuck it, I love him. But the truth is that Joe Biden is not affable like that, and he does not have the charisma. He cannot ride on the coattails of the past.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, he's not even Jimmy Carter. You talk about all the talks about Reagan and all these people that were transformational at their time, or the party beloved him. Joe Biden is not. He's not Obama. He's not Trump even. And he's not even Jimmy Carter, let alone somebody like a Reagan type. So the cracks are there. He was carried by an anti-Trump energy that you just don't see in full gear anymore. And now you also, not only that, you have this anti-Biden energy that's kind of, it's like a double-edged sword, and he has no room for error. It's very, very unlikely that I feel like at this stage in the game he's going to pull it off, but it does come down to turnout.
And we can also declare, and I'm saying this, I'm going on a limb, I don't know if you'll back me up on this, but I do think that Jill Stein will be a more consequential candidate than will be RFK, actually, when it comes down to the numbers. Jill Stein is going to get, let's say, 3 or 4% of the vote. That's going to be more than the Libertarian Party, I guarantee. I
don't know about 3
but
to
even
4,
chief among that. 3 to 4. Nah, it's going to look good in Michigan. She's going to be busting it, okay? Wisconsin, great stuff. Listen, we have her at least double or triple the support she had in 2016 or 20. And that's a monumental difference, because obviously 90% of those people are liberal that are voting for her. Whereas obviously with RFK, it's a lot more 55-45 either way.
No, I know what you mean. I agree.
Is participating. Yeah.
I don't think she's going to get 3, but I think that whatever she gets is all from Biden. RFK, you could debate that. Depends on the state. 50-50, whatever, 55-45 maybe even. But Jill Stein is the consequential candidate at the end of the day, and that's really what this, in certain states like Michigan, you didn't have the Green Party in 2020. You didn't really have anyone running on that ticket that was notable. You have Jill Stein. You have Cornel West, who will also try to tap into the Islamic vote that might not be fully embracing Trump, but doesn't like Biden. So you kind of see those margins there, and they all do add up, and they all do take votes away from Biden, who has such a narrow margin for error to begin with. But anyways, Lalo, thanks for coming on the stream. I appreciate it.
So true. And I will say, if you want more Red Eagle derived content, it's very much almost copy and paste. You're going to want to watch my channel at LaloAZ03. I'll link it in the comments. See you right there.
All right. Thank you. So we have one super chat to go. We've been going for 2 hours. UNSC Connor says, Trump 24, tell that troll D-Man to SMD. Well, I don't know who D-Man is, but D-Man, S is D. All right. There we go. So I think we're going to end the show. We've been going for 2 hours and 12 minutes. It was a good stream. We had a lot of good callers that made a lot of very good points. And I do this once a month. We do a call-in stream once a month. If you guys want to be able to call into the show, you guys are more than welcome to. Not this show, because this show's over. But I'll put the link. If you join the website, just 16 cents a day, $5 a month, if you would like. We have the Discord server in the website. You guys can join up there. I take calls. If you are in the higher tiers, you get priority calling. If you are not in the higher tiers, then we'll just go by who's waiting the longest. But do keep in mind, it is worth it. I put an exclusive video out there every single week and an exclusive article. Got my own little newsletter there as well. But again, I understand Biden economy, not a lot of people can afford it, but it is, if you can, you know, it's good to stimulate these small businesses as well. So keep that in mind. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching the stream. Make sure you guys like the stream down below. Subscribe if you are new. Hit that bell if you're already subscribed so you don't miss another video or live stream. Follow me on social media. The links are down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle out.